What we really should have is on-hold music for all these type of moments when we're waiting for everybody to log in and connect and say hello and stuff like that. Folks, you're all very welcome. We're just going to give about another 60 seconds while everybody joins. Seamus, good to see you.
Hi.
Joey, nice to see you. Grania, welcome. William, as always, you're very welcome. Milo, Michael, Mikhail, good to see you. Frank, you as well. Joey, you're hiding in the dark. That's okay. Who else is there? Ellie, nice to see you. Ellie, how you doing? Great stuff. So, Grant, that's 16:02. So let me get underway then, and we can. We've a few more people popped in there. Great, perfect timing. Right, folks, you're all very welcome. My name is Ian Dodson. I am Chief Cook and Bottle Washer at AI Certified, and welcome to two of a series of three of our webinars on the EU AI Act. Today. In the webinar, you're going to have three people. Alan, if you just jump onto the next slide there. Three people. We all notoriously have the gift of the gab. We all are experts at holding the talking stick. So I will be ruthless, much more ruthless this time around, and cut people off and insist on short answers to questions. Myself included, I'm the worst at this. Ray Grafton, who is our commercial director in AI Certified, and Alan Thornton, who's definitely our EU AI navigator, who is an absolute mind of information about this act, and you won't be able to stop him once he gets going. So I've redefined myself today as being the person in charge of the whip and the bell and the timekeeper. And I say that to myself more than anybody else. So welcome, first of all, to the second of this series. The EU AI Act is something that's barreling along merrily on its way, and most people are saying, okay, yes, that's an interesting thing. What's that going on out there? Is there something we should be doing, and is there a box tick here for us? Is there a compliance issue? Is it a governance issue? Is it a board level issue? What does it exactly mean for the business? So what we want to do is we're going to try and unpack it today for you. We're going to try and give you some decent information, and we're going to propose in the last 15 minutes just a solution to how you would actually make sure that you're compliant. So we'll help you tick those boxes as well. So if I can, just for 30 seconds, I want to step up to 60,000 feet and just look down on this from a bit of height, just to give us some perspective, first of all. Okay, if anyone has seen LinkedIn over the past week, I'm rambling away on a number of posts about the fact that every new technology typically arrives before the rules and the regulations that govern it. So what we end up having is technology barrels into our life, into our world. And then at some point afterwards, we realize, oh, there's an impact to this. We should really regulate this and put some rules around it. Whether that's the car, whether it's the internet, whether it's electricity, whether it's the steam engine, whatever it is, we naturally tend to innovate first and follow up with regulation later. And that's fine. That's the way things have traditionally been. And it's very hard to innovate when there's lots of regulation in place already. And we won't get into the debate again about the innovation without regulation versus regulation type approach. Suffice to say that as we adopt and as we use a technology, we begin to realize what's at stake. More importantly, we begin to realize what's at risk. So the first cars didn't have seatbelts. If you think of that, it was many years before cars actually had seatbelts. And why did they get seatbelts? Well, we began to see crashes, and we began to see people getting hurt, and people that owners of cars saw people that they knew and loved getting hurt. So when we understand what is at stake and what is at risk, then we regulate. And that is true of everything, whether it's electrical appliances, pharmaceuticals, food. When we see people being poisoned or when we see people getting electrocuted, oh, it would be good to have an earth wire in this plug so people won't electrocute themselves. Oh, it'd be good to take plugs out of bathrooms so people won't drop hair dryers in sinks and stuff like that. So when we understand what's at stake, then we begin to regulate. And that is the price of adoption. That is the requirement that every industry needs to meet in order to allow, or for us to allow it into our lives, into our worlds, into our businesses. And that's the basis here as well of this EU AI Act in terms of its regulation. So what's at stake here? Well, when we see that the power and the computing power and the supercomputing power of AI, and we realize, okay, well, this could be used for lots of nefarious things, whether it be facial recognition, whether it be breaking codes, whatever it is, we begin to say, right, okay, we need some guardrails around this. And that's the price of the industry growing up. And AI Certified's role very much has always been and always will be, is to encourage the AI industry to grow up, stop running around like an unruly teenager with their hair on fire, slamming doors and wrecking the place, and start to actually grow up and start to realize, look, we have a responsibility here, not just for we'll say rules and regulations, but for certification. And we need to put in all of the mechanisms that allow people to adopt safely the use of AI. And fair play to, I'm a huge fan of the EU. I'm a critic of the EU at times. But, in the past 10 years, kind of silently in the background, the EU has been the only force in the world that has begun the process of regulating the digital world. And through GDPR, primarily over the past 10 years, the EU were the only people to regulate and say, well, this is what you need to abide by if you want to operate digitally within the European Union. These are the rules you need to abide by. And since then, the GDPR model has been adopted all over the world. In most constituencies now around the world of data protection models that are based on GDPR. And once again, the EU, fair play to it, on the back of the explosion of AI, is once again now introducing the first, and it is literally the first global certification on AI. The US policy is unfettered innovation, and let's see what happens. The European policy is we have to protect our citizens, and we're going to do it in a way. And this is the thing that I'm most thrilled about when it comes to the EU AI Act. It doesn't start with forms and box ticking. It starts with people. It starts with make sure people have the literacy levels and the understanding so that they know how to use AI properly. And that's just music to my ears, because at the end of the day, this all comes down to people. Human beings are at the center of the equation. And here we have a powerful new technology that's been put into our hands. And the EU is right there saying, let's make sure people know what the upside is, know what the downside is, know what the guardrails are, and let's put this in place. So it's a multi-stage process. It's a voluntary style self-regulation process. It's a self-declaration process. But don't for a minute think that it doesn't have teeth, because it does. And I'll let Alan talk about enforcement and fines and things like that. But it's a meaningful first step into regulation for an industry that has to grow up. And we welcome it as AI certified, and you should welcome it as users of AI as well. So I leave it at that. That was a fairly succinct 6 minutes. Sorry about that. High level view. And so what I'll do now is let me hand over to Alan, and he can take you through the agenda for what we're going to cover, and he'll kick it off. And I'll be back to you in a while, and we'll have time for questions and answers. And at the end, then we can continue on chatting, and anyone who wants to stay can stay. And also, if you'd like to chat to us beyond this, feel free to do that as well. So without further ado, Alan, do you want to take it from there?
Yes, thank you so much, Ian. Really appreciate that intro and overview. It really covers kind of where we're at the moment with AI and regulation. So in today's session, we will look at the EU AI Act, who's in scope and what's at stake, meeting the training duty, the role-based piece, accredited AI literacy. It's really, really important. It's the foundation to everything. We'll look at documentation and evidence, what regulators expect you to keep. Then we'll have a look at the audit and independent assurance piece, making that count. And as Ian said, we'll have time at the end for Q&A and a little bit about your next steps. So jumping straight in, we are going to look at some key articles and organization mandates. So there are 144 articles and various annexes to the EU AI Act, but these are the ones you really need to be aware of. So Article 4 and 5 cover literacy and prohibitions. Article 4 is really, really key. So role-based literacy. Every organization deploying AI must ensure staff understands the tools sufficiently for their role. So the EU expects best effort training to be applied to the different department heads, leadership, or staff roles that you have. so that you can show there is a literacy to the AI use cases inside your organization. So that training must be documented, a casual team meeting, saying, we've done a little bit of training, we've looked at this, that's not going to really meet the legally compliant requirements. So you're going to have a formal literacy training structure for different individuals inside your organization. Article 5 then, prohibited practices. So this has actually been active since February 2025. Certain use cases are entirely banned in the European Union, and the most commonly overlooked violation is workplace emotion recognition in productivity tracking or interview platforms. So if you have a use case like that and you're still using that in your organization, it's actually a banned system, and I'd be looking to potentially remove those use cases. Well, not potentially, definitely remove those use cases from what you're doing inside your organization. Articles 6, 9 through 15, and 26, they look at the high risk framework. So there are different levels of risk to AI use cases and systems. It's minimal risk, limited risk, high risk, and then those banned systems. So system classification covered by Article 6, systems in HR, credit scoring, finance, health, or essential services require active verification. Intended use and marketing claims dictate risk classification levels. So you need to understand, when you have a high risk system, how you got to that decision to basically allow you to understand, yes, this use case is a high risk system, document that, and then your marketing materials need to meet a conformity requirements to be able to promote it in a certain way to the marketplace. Article 26 then is deployer mandates. So compliance cannot be fully delegated to vendors. Deployers must actively implement human oversight, continuously monitor operations, and maintain tamper evidence event logs. So we'll look at that in more detail later on. But what's really key here is that top opening sentence: compliance cannot be fully delegated to vendors. So if you are relying on a third party or a partner or a vendor to supply you an AI use case for your business, how you use it, that compliance piece is actually on you. If the vendor is compliant for them delivering that service to you, how you use it then has additional compliance requirements that are completely on you as the person who is using it. It's not on the vendor, so you can't rely on them ticking the box. You'll also have to do a piece of work yourself. Articles 50 and 99, so this is transparency and penalties. The transparency enforcement date is August 2nd, so it's 3 days away. It's come around really, really quickly. So clear disclosures are mandatory for chatbots, synthetic media, and biometric categorization systems. I'll talk briefly about labels in a minute. And then obviously Article 99 and its relevant subsections cover penalties and fines. So there is severe financial exposure at the different risk levels. So the EU AI Act applies to your business today. You don't need to be a multinational to be in scope. If your team uses AI, Article 4's AI literacy obligations already apply, and your customers and partners are starting to ask. So I'm seeing this a lot, especially over the last 6 weeks. There's a bit of panic going on out there at the moment. So in force now, as I said, Article 4 has applied since February 2025. The obligation is live. It is not pending. Enforcement begins in 3 days' time, and pretty much everyone is in scope, from a one-person business to a larger enterprise, because it's not about the size of your business or your industry. It's about the AI use case, how you're using these systems, how you're deploying them, and what that accountability, governance, and oversight piece is. So that's what it's actually about. So everybody basically who's using AI professionally or in a business capacity or a charity capacity is in scope. So to look at the penalties, this is the number one question I get. The number two question is, are regulators actually going to start enforcing things? And I'll talk about that before we move on from this slide. So the top level fine we see there in purple, 15 million or 3% of global annual turnover, is the penalty for the transparency failures that kick in from August 2nd. So that covers GPAI, general purpose artificial intelligence systems, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, whatever it may be. Most organizations are using one of these types of systems internally. And then that transparency piece, which again is related to limited risk systems under Article 50. So if you use an AI tool to generate marketing content, slides for investors or stakeholders inside your organization, publicly facing information in politics or whatever it may be, a transparency label is required where it says AI generated, supported by AI, or whatever is relevant for the use case. So as we said, Article 50 covers synthetic media, and that is pretty much any output from a GP AI that you present to the public. So it's good to know that that's what that is. It's pretty much any output that you present to the public from GPIA. And there is one exception we didn't cover last time, which is that if there is genuine editorial oversight of that piece and a governance structure behind it from an accountability perspective, you don't have to add a label. So it's a very interesting exception, and that can obviously, lead to a bit of a gray area. Moving on then from transparency is that kind of really scary fine there in orange, 35 million euros or 7% of global annual turnover, whatever essentially is higher. This is for high-risk AI systems covered under Annex 3. So that's your HR tools, finance tools, things in education, the medical space, public, in some cases, public service AI, if it interacts with human data and makes decisions for governments, for example. That enforcement date was actually to be August 2nd, 2026, but they pushed it out to December 2027. So August 2nd looks after transparency, Article 50 GPAIs. December 2027 is high-risk systems inside your business that need to pass conformity assessments. You have until December 2027 to get those things in place internally. Just to give you an idea of what's required for high-risk systems, it can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months to complete a conformity assessment. So even though you have, been pushed out from an enforcement penalty perspective to December 2027, in certain use cases, that is 18 months away. So even if you start now, you still may not meet that deadline at the end of next year. So that's just something to take note of. So what actually changes on August 2nd, this Sunday? So national authorities begin active supervision of the regulations, which is good to see. They are serious about it. I want to highlight subsection 5 of the penalties, Article 99, which is a fine of up to 7.5 million euros or 1% of global annual turnover for supplying incorrect or incomplete information on your AI governance setup and structure if requested by regulators. So where that really affects people is if you haven't got something going at the moment, or you delay this, push it off, you wait until you get a request, or you think this doesn't really affect me. If that request comes in and there's a time limit on when you need to produce that information, you're going to panic. You're going to try and backtrack, gather information. People will be putting in use cases, they'll be putting in human oversight procedures, SOPs, things that weren't actually accurate. If you then present that to the regulators, that will be, issuing incorrect or incomplete information and comes with a fine. So getting your literacy piece in place, getting your governance structure set up for AI is really, really critical now. Don't be waiting for someone to come and ask, because there's actually a penalty if you supply that incomplete kind of panic-based information. Another little known max fine cap is for EU public bodies. So in Ireland, that would be like the Garda Síochána, certain universities, things like that. There's a max cap fine of 750,000 euros under for Article 50 breaches for EU public bodies. So any breach that occurs in relation to a GPIA from these institutions, the max level fine is 750,000 euros for those people. So customers, partners, and procurement teams are already asking for evidence of AI literacy measures. I have seen this over the last few weeks, so it is happening. And then on the insurance side, really, really important, it's starting to become a major risk zone for certain industries and businesses. Is your policy covering AI incidences, or are you even covered anymore as policies begin to void if you do not have a verifiable AI framework in place? And what's super interesting here is companies on the renewals who can produce that governance structure and human oversight literacy piece are receiving 20 to 50% discounts on renewals of their cybersecurity policies. So that's really, really good to know, and another incentive to really get ahead of this. Brilliant. I will pass over to Ray, who will run us through the 5 questions you cannot avoid and what people are asking.
Thanks, Alan. So yeah, what I wanted to frame this slide in particular, from what I'm hearing out in the marketplace, speaking to businesses of all size, from SMB companies with 200 employees. The next bracket is kind of 500 to 1,000, and then right up to the enterprise level of 10,000 plus. And it's not just regulation, right? That is, only is the only factor here. There's also one of five directions I think the pressure is coming from, and why organizations need to certify, who's asking. So like as you can see on screen, like the B2B customers that I have conversations with, how are you governing AI? They definitely want a verifiable answer before they'll trade with you. Yeah. And that has come up. It's beginning to come up more so. The B2C individual people who are interested in our certifications, very much, how is AI involved with my data? So it's a trust question, not just a governance one, for the individual persona. At the board level, it's really how can we prove we're managing AI risk, right? So, in terms of assurance for the next risk review, and that's top of mind there. The regulators very much shows the evidence, right? What training do you have in place? What are the policies, the governance policies? What are what records, what evidence do you have your history of documentation stored and ready to be, to show, and also then being renewal ready. Yeah. The procurement piece is an interesting one. I've spoken to a couple of large enterprise companies, particularly in the insurance side, and they're already kind of bringing up the question, can we trust your AI processes? So there's definitely a trust page there that shortens security reviews, right? And that could be a big differentiator for your business. And then certainly our own people, like what training have we received? Often that's the question that lands the hardest internally. Um, so where that comes to it really is one independent answer to all five is what we're going to provide to you today, a kind of a public certification, a governance score, and evidence, anyone can verify. So this is what we've done. We've packaged one answer to all five, and here this is what it's going to look like. So I think in the first instance, we've got three pillars, right? We've got your pillar one, which is a certification of your staff. And within that, we're really talking about it's a defined share of your team must earn a kind of a accredited AI qualification. And it's the role differentiated literacy, for the EOA Act and the governance that we've taken out of our professional diploma program. And that's related to Article 4, which is the literacy and the training piece that the EOA Act is enforcing. Then the pillar 2 is compliance proof. So that's linked to Article 15, I believe, within the EOA Act. And for that, with Alan, we've partnered with Alan because he's produced a light touch software platform that records the documentation that regulators expect you to keep in a renewal ready kind of repository. So it's a really simple system that will keep you on track to make sure you're documenting and you have evidence of all of the AI trail, so to speak. And it's a nice way, I think, and an easy way for you to make sense of the 144 articles and understand, if I am high risk, well, what articles do I need to focus on right now? And clearly, as we're touching on, Article 4, the literacy piece, and Article 15 is a good start. So then we have Pillar 3, which is the insurance side. And that's where we will again, bring in Alan as subject matter expert here. He'll be able to consult with you and do a structured review, which verifies your measures are genuine and validates the training. And then once we complete those three pillars, we can offer you then the AI certified enterprise badge. So to say that the business is fully EUA Act assured. So in terms of what the package looks like, we've got really three options for you. And we've broken it down, as you can see, in terms of organization size. so that it's going to be something that will fit small businesses to right up to the enterprise level. The most popular option is definitely the verified option in the middle that we've gotten the biggest interest in so far. But just to bring you through the options and what they mean, self-assessed really is a verified self-declaration with a desk review, and that's probably the fastest way in. And then the second option is the verified, and that basically just adds evidence review and an interview and record sampling, and probably the most popular. And then the final piece is the audited piece, where we do independent audit and control testing, and that gives you the highest level of assurance, and it is ISO, 42001 aligned. So 3 options: self-assessed, verified, and audited, and hopefully a price point that's manageable for most people. When compared, I think, Alan, from what I've heard from you and certainly other customers who have gone through this process, maybe even last year with legal firms, they can pay for this type of service in the tens of thousands, I believe.
Yes, correct. The starting point for a single document is 2.5 grand, and depending on your requirements, if you're high risk, it can go to €250,000 for a full setup with annual costs of 30 to 50 grand.
Right. So we're providing all the documents for our price points rather than it being per document price at 2.5 grand.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying here is every package is kind of an annual base, and it's all inclusive, right? As we've just said. And the certified qualification seats, you get the evidence tracking platform, you can get the QA review and the company badge and a 12-month public register listing to say you're certified. I think also 2 things will move the price, obviously. Your organization size, how many people must be certified, and your chosen level of assurance. And then obviously, renewals, we can look at recharging at a reduced rate. But really final scope and all the pricing, maybe book a meeting with us if you're interested, and we can, go through in a quick readiness call to see if it's a good fit.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Ray. I will actually walk through the solution then, step by step, briefly touching on training, as I said, which is the core foundational piece, that tamper evidence piece, which is actually Article 12, just to clear it up in case people caught 15 on the previous piece of information. It is Article 12, and then the assurance piece we'll look at as well. So the very first step is, Article 4 requires that everyone who works with AI on your behalf has a sufficient level of AI literacy. So that's that best effort practice. That's the actual language from the EU AI office. So appropriate to their role and evidenced. And we can see 2 examples here. One is the HR team. They may have a tool, you may have built a tool, whatever it may be, that handles candidate CVs. So those individuals will need deep compliance training, strict data privacy controls. They need to understand bias and how these tools work, because that system will be high risk. That will be the classification. By default, HR tools and systems come under that more intensive compliance admin piece of the high risk level categorization. The next example is a receptionist. They may be drafting email welcomes, whatever it may be, using a bit of ChatGPT or Claude. So these individuals in your organization will need basic security awareness, training and baseline guidance on acceptable uses and how the use case works. They need to understand the difference between limited risk and high risk, for example. And that's essentially it. Once they get that training and it's documented, you can then add that to your evidence locker in your AI governance structure. And that's really, really helpful. A third use case here, and one that is key to understand and consider, is that question of, can leadership really make decisions around deploying AI that they don't understand? So throughout an organization or even a small business, if you don't have the relevant, appropriate literacy training on AI or the regulations, how can you really understand that ChatGPT is good for the receptionist? This tool is good for our HR team. This tool is good for our finance team. So the leadership really needs a high-level overview piece of training to be able to actually make decisions that they can stand over around the deployment of different AI use cases at different levels inside the organization. So the duty scales with how your people use, oversee, or deploy AI, and it works both ways. So training without a governance framework or a framework without training obviously leaves a gap. So together they form a solid foundation for confidence in AI governance. So that's really, really important. So how do we translate the duty? 100% of your AI engaged staff complete a baseline AI literacy model. That's the kind of point of entry module. Excuse me. That's the point of entry for you and your team. Key roles then are critical to understand: named users, overseers, deployers. They will earn an accredited SQA recognized qualification. And then you want to make sure everything is logged, and we'll touch on that next. So every record kept and renewal ready in one easy to use, lightweight platform. So step 2 is centered on tamper evident logs, Article 12. You want to keep everything in one place. Your training records, who completed what, when, per person and per role. Role mapping, who uses, oversees, and deploys AI across the organization. So leadership will make decisions, department heads will make decisions, and then it's up to you to understand or have a policy in place as to what employees can and can't do. You don't want people having a situation where they use a ChatGPT account you're not aware of. That's what's called shadow AI. They might pump some information into a tool. You don't know that that's happening, and it creates a risk for your business. The next thing then is policy acknowledgements. Who signs off on things? What are the renewal dates? Are you staying on top of that? Do you know when things change? Are you updating it? Is there a version history on file when things have changed over the previous months? AI is updating every 4 weeks, every 8 weeks, every quarter. It moves so fast. So you need to have a sign-off structure in place, understand when those dates, come around for renewals, and log those version histories. And then you need those renewal-ready exports. So evidence packs for review, procurement, and audit. So whenever anyone comes asking, is it the procurement team of a company you're looking to partner with? They want the evidence of how you use AI and how you oversee it. Is it an insurer who wants, to be confident that you have a system in place to manage AI use cases? Is it the public at large? Has somebody made a request around their data and how AI potentially touches that information? You need to be able to export that evidence for the relevant audience who is asking for it. So every record kept in tamper evident logs, as I mentioned, Article 12. So it's not a spreadsheet. It's not a consulting project. Documentation regulators expect. It's not a standard IT log, and that's really important to know. So what you may be used to with tech teams or outsourced tech teams, they run standard IT logs that keeps a basic track of interactions and what's happening. This needs to be a record that cannot be altered after the fact without detection. So that's what tamper evident actually means. So it's essentially a regulatory black box, so to speak. And cryptographic hashing, such as SHA-256 encryption, is a really good example of this, or blockchain would be another example of tamper evident logs that essentially will always let you know if they've been altered or broken in any way. So nobody can cover up something, essentially, if that's what they're trying to do. That's the whole point of this. Solution step 3 then is that independent QA piece. So you've got your training done, your people have that literacy foundation, they can understand how AI works, how the regulations work, how to make really good decisions over AI use, who's accountable for it. It's a fantastic position to be in. Then you're logging that, you've got your evidence locker together, you can produce that evidence at a moment's notice with confidence. The last thing then is to make sure that how you've set all of that up, will pass an audit when somebody comes asking. So solution step 3, that independent kind of assurance piece, is a framework-wide verification. It's independent QA phase ensures your entire AI governance framework is completely accounted for, properly structured, and fully operationalized. It's a guided, structured review with myself, and it's conducted directly through the governance software that Ray mentioned. So we'll be systematically checking off every required measure and making sure the regulatory controls are in place. So it's a hands-on validation bridge. It essentially guarantees that the theoretical policies actually align with the real-world execution. So ensuring the final compliance badge carries genuine, verifiable weight. And I won't go into it in too much detail, but there is a technical assurance component to this, which essentially allows you to be confident that you have a system of record for AI trust. That is really, really key on top of the AI literacy piece. So your people know where they are at with AI, they understand everything, and then your records are super solid, really, really important. And that obviously involves a cryptographic verification process for documentation, training, AI system logs, whatever it may be. There's chain of custody documentation verification that happens through attestation, which is a digital process that basically uses hardware and digital techniques to ensure a customer's environment is solid and legitimate. So where those interactions took place from an evidence gathering perspective, you can stand over it and say there was no tampering, no issues. And then there's technical documentation templates if you need them inside the tool, especially if you have high risk use cases. So that essentially leads us to the 3 levels of assurance. Prove as much as you need. So as Ray mentioned, self-assessed, verified self-declaration with desk review, the fastest way in. So you can get your training done, you can get into the software, you can log your use cases and have a relatively basic evidence pack that you can be relatively confident of. The verified, as Ray mentioned, is the most chosen choice. It adds an evidence review, an interview, and a bit of record sampling, and then audit ready. So independent audit ready prep and control testing, which is the highest assurance aligned to ISO 42001 that is included in the lightweight software. There is an ISO 42001 hub where you can build out your AI management system alongside that system of record. So never self-declare alone. Every level is independently assessed against published criteria, publicly verifiable on the AI certified register with a defined scope and expiry and maps to the EU AI Act, Article 4 and ISO 42001 controls. So really, really solid offering there that will help you get into a really, really good place on this. Which brings us to the AI certified badge. And I will let Ian explain.
Yep. Just on mute there, Ian. 1 sec.
Sorry about that. The button was hiding there in the corner. Alan, thanks a million for that. That's comprehensive to say the least. I had an interesting conversation with a former colleague about, I don't know, a year ago. And I said, what are you doing in your organization about AI? And we batted around for a few minutes and we chatted about different aspects and different approaches, whatever. And he said, he put it very well. He said, you know what, I'd really like to be able to have an intelligent conversation about AI. And I think it's actually a very good starting point for most organizations and most people is that to separate the hoopla and all the brouhaha and all the chaos and all the crazy and actually be able to have an intelligent conversation about what exactly is going on here and what the impact is. So let me just preface this slide again by stepping back a minute out of the detail, because there's a lot of detail here and there's a lot of information. And just to kind of ground us again and come back a little bit, what we are trying to do in AI Certified is provide people with an entry point, a progression route, and a validation when it comes to AI and where they start. So what's that entry point? Well, first of all, for most people and for all businesses, there is a requirement to ensure that you are compliant with the EU AI Act. And by starting there, what it gives you is, because the very first step within the Act is, are your people literate? And it gives you a great starting point and a great discussion point, because a lot of organizations right now are picking up AI and they're trying loads of tools and they're throwing all kinds of stuff into them and they're trying all kinds of stuff and they're being dazzled by what's possible and there's amazing things possible. But there's no structured approach to it. There's no way of pulling it down out of the sky and saying, okay, well, will we start looking at our processes? Will we start looking at our teams? Will we start looking at different aspects of what it can do, what it can't do? A great place to start when it comes to AI, funnily enough, is the regulation, because the regulation prioritizes people first. So I am hugely encouraging people every day. I speak, I write, I talk, I meet people every day to say, look, if you're not sure where to start here, because the compliance with the EU AI Act makes you have the proper conversations on day one. Do our people know what they're doing? Well, if they don't know what they're doing, well, what should they be doing? What are their responsibilities? What are their roles? How should we be dealing with it? And by using the Act as your basis, you begin that literacy journey for people in the organization to start having a conversation. And it immediately leads to conversations about regulation, guardrails, protection, what's possible, doable. Wow, are we high risk? What is high risk? What actually, what are we going to be using AI for? What's John used AI there in finance for? What's he used it in whatever? Because the ghost AI right now is the thing that will bite you in the backside. Because what most people will not admit is that they are, whether their company has a policy or not, they're taking their laptop home at the end of the day. They're ramming spreadsheets, CRM data, financials, shipping, logistics, all into the AI systems and doing all kinds of wonderful things with it, getting amazing results, coming back to work the following day and kind of going, oh, yes, well, I discovered this or I found this. So we have to start pulling that down and giving people the protection that they need, because your employees may be putting you into a higher category of risk than you should be in, and you don't even know it yet. So start the conversation. Start the conversation. Start by looking at the literacy training that is provided around the EU AI Act. This is a light touch piece of software that we're talking about that Alan is describing here. One of the best things you could do after this is have a call with us and get Alan to take you through and show you how the system works, how it records, what information and data you should be recording, in what way. And it's a real eye opener in that sense as well. And the ultimate goal of this is so that for all of your internal and external stakeholders, you can turn around and confidently say, we know what we're doing. We have our badge, which shows, see the badge, there it is. We're an AI certified enterprise, which means we're compliant with the EU AI Act. Oh, prove it. No problem. Press the button and out the software spits all of your compliance documents, and you're on a public register if you want to be as well. So I would encourage everybody to basically be able to comfortably answer the question that both your board, your marketing and sales team, your customers and partners, and your people are going to start asking, which is, are we EU AI Compliant Act? Are we ready for it? Do we have the right stuff in place? Do we know what we're doing? And the beauty of it is it starts with the people, and that means it starts with great conversations. So let me, do you want to jump on to the next slide there, Alan? I think I'm handing back to, exactly, that's perfect. So I'm going to, that's not bad. We're 4:43. Now, Ray, I know you're going to want to jump in. So I'm going to hold you off just for 1 second.
Well, we have
30 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I thought it was something you wanted to say. Do we have a question already, Ray?
No, myself and Alan actually thought it'd be a good idea just to show for 30 seconds Alan's platform. I will show people what it looks like, and also to show them our governance and ethics module on our learning management system. So if that's okay, we'll jump into that, and then we'll take Q&A.
So I'll just. I am going to watch the time though, because I don't want to bury people. So keep going.
No, 100%. I'll just share screen for a second, and bear with me, folks, while I bring this up. Oh, apologies. Now. So let me bring it into our platform. Excuse me. Sorry now. There we are. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah, crystal clear.
Fantastic. Okay. So this is the learning management platform that you'll be actually using. And when you go into the module on governance and ethics, this is how it looks out. It's formatted. So you're going to get a quick description of what you're going to learn in this in each skill set. I've just sampled the first skill set here, which is the foundational module. This will set the scene in terms of what you need to know around the AI ethics assessment and governance recommendations. And then we're going to break it down into bite-sized pieces of learning. Okay, as you can see from all of the skill sets here. And we do that for all of the elements within this module. In terms of what that looks like, and in terms of the learning features, you're going to have the option to watch a quick video. So if you want to get the highlights in 5 or 6 minutes of what the ethical landscape of AI is about, you can watch the video. And then we also know people are on the road, they might want to listen to the podcast, and that will be 2 subject matter experts from the compliance background talking about each of these skill sets. So in this case, it's the ethical landscape of AI. And then finally, you also have the ability to engage with our AI tutor. So if you are stuck or if you need to ask any questions and get a quick answer, you will be able to type in your question here and it'll get an instant answer. So that's a big plus to help, accelerate the speed of learning. And yeah, it's the full computational power of an LLM. So it's able to ask day-to-day questions as well as what the EOA Act is about. So I'll stop sharing just to give you a sense of what Alan's platforms looks like. Alan?
Yeah, no worries. And Ian, don't worry, I will be very quick with this. We'll just do a 60-second overview. Let's share the entire screen. Perfect. So this is what the tool looks like. You essentially build out your AI systems register, input all of your use cases. They will then appear as cards like this, and they will map against whatever the relevant risk category and articles are that you need to get yourself set up with. So that will be Article 4, Article 50, 6 through 15, depending on whether you're high risk or not. So it's really easy to input your AI use cases. They're really clear to understand and see on this page. And in the menu on the left, you've got support for policy documentation. You can see that evidence and that audit trail, which is automatically generated every time you take an action on an AI system. You've got a compliance intelligence dashboard that tells you where you're at from a percentage perspective, what you've done and what you still need to do. Then, as I mentioned, you've got an ISO 42001 hub, which will allow you to build out alongside your kind of system of records the AI management system that you want to use for your organization or business. So I think that's a good overview. I can obviously go into more detail at a different time, but Ray, what you guys have is really, really amazing. And then this just kind of adds that extra layer on top.
So I definitely encourage people, if you're interested at all, definitely set up a meeting with us to follow up, and we'll take you through the learning in detail, the software in detail, and the quality assurance aspects in detail, and give you a really good foundation and base on which to move forward. Now, I am not in control of the system here, so have we any questions? Would anyone like to throw a question at us, or have we any already?
Yeah.
Are you driving the bus, Ray, are you?
Yeah, I'll just read off. There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Brilliant.
So William Cleary asked, are the fees for this product once off? Good question, Willie. They're annual fees, as I said earlier. So I mean, we will, AI is changing all the time, and you're going to need to maintain this, right? So we will discuss obviously a smaller renewal fee with you, but that would be, on an annual basis. But I think the fact that there's going to be new AI technology, there's going to be new staff coming into your business, it has to be maintained year on year. Hope that answers your question.
Right, keep going there, Ray, then if you
And
want.
then Mikhail was asking, can AI Certified offer an annual subscription type service to an organization providing all the necessary AI training and retraining to all personnel who need such training, like the per AI Act? Yeah, it's a good question, Mikhail, and it's kind of timely because part of what we're going to be launching in the next couple of weeks is a complete new offering to kind of business to business. And we are looking into a kind of a subscription model for that. So yes, those options will be available as well. Just a last question. I hope that answers your question, Mikhail. We can pick it up with you again, of course. Seamus Murtagh is asking, many companies in Ireland regarding the ISO standard, are they certified yet, or are they expressing an interest? I kick that over to you, Alan.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm definitely seeing people express an interest for ISO 42001 because it is the global standard for AI management systems. It's pretty much the only one, and there is whispers, through the grapevine that larger enterprises will start requiring it for contracts or any sort of partnership work from 2027. So it's really, really good to know that that's kind of what's coming later on. So as I said, you've kind of got from a logging and AI management perspective on the governance side, they're two kind of different tracks to follow. One is the overall AI management system to the ISO standard, making sure you have everything in place. You're running annual checks on that and passing. And then you've got your system of record piece, which is an audit trail against every use case inside the organization. Who's accountable, who's responsible? Can you produce that evidence at a moment's notice? So yes, people are very interested in ISO 42001, and I don't think a lot of people have it yet. It's very new.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Thank you. Brilliant stuff. Right, folks. Anybody else there? Oh, just one thing there, Sushmi, requesting everyone to fill in the feedback form. Thanks. If you would, it would be absolutely fantastic if you just take a second and click on the link and give us some feedback. It's as always welcome. We are 16:51. That's a record for us. We're 9 minutes under time. I hope I don't jinx it now. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to raise your hand or shout. Either type it in or just turn on your mic there and say hello. If not, we will be following up with an email afterwards. We'll forward you on the link to this full presentation and webinar. It'll also be on the site and on LinkedIn and stuff like that. Thanks, Ellie. And if there's no more questions, then I think that'd be a perfect time to say thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Available for a follow-up if anybody would like to have a chat. And best of luck with your AI adventures. Thanks a million, folks. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.